Welcome to C Files, folks. Thanks for joining me. And don't forget to like and subscribe and tell others about the channel so they can be blessed by this devotion time that we do, as well as me being blessed and you being blessed. Thank you for holding me accountable for my devotion. We're only going to do one chapter in this particular video out of the book of Revelation. As we're going, part of what we're doing is going through the book of Revelation, as well as other books in the Bible simultaneously. And we're going to be in Revelation chapter 13. And this is the beast from the sea. And what I will do is I will read all 18 verses and then we'll discuss it. And I have limited time, so I have to go quickly on it. So let's get right into it. Then I stood on the sand of the sea, and I saw a beast rising up out of the sea, having 7 heads and 10 horns, and of his horns 10 crowns, and on his heads a blasphemous name. Now the beast which I saw was like a leopard. His feet were like the feet of a bear, and his mouth like the mouth of a lion. The dragon gave him his power, his throne, and great authority. And I saw one of his heads as if it had been mortally wounded, and his deadly wound was healed. And all the world marveled and followed the beast. So they worshiped the dragon who gave authority to the beast, and they worshiped the beast, saying, "Who is like the beast? Who is able to make war with him?" And he was given a mouth speaking great things and blasphemies, and he was given authority to continue for 42 months. Then he opened his mouth in blasphemy against God, to blaspheme his name, his tabernacle, and those who dwell in heaven. It is granted to him to make war with the saints and to overcome them. And authority was given him over every tribe, tongue, and nation. All who dwell on the earth will worship him, whose names have not been written in the book of life of the Lamb slain from the foundation of the world. If anyone has an ear, let him hear what he. Let me try it again. If anyone has an ear, let him hear. He who leads into captivity shall go into captivity. He who kills with the sword must be killed with the sword. Here is the patience and the faith of the saints. Then I saw another beast coming out of the earth, and he had 2 horns like a lamb and spoke like a dragon. And he exercises all the authority of the first beast in his presence and causes the earth and those who dwell in it to worship the first beast, whose deadly wound was healed. He performs great signs so that he even makes fire come down from heaven on the earth in the sight of men. And he deceives those who dwell on the earth by those signs which he was granted to do in the sight of the beast, telling those who dwell on the earth to make an image to the beast who was wounded by the sword and lived. He was granted power to give breath to the image of the beast, that the image of the beast should both speak and cause as many as would not worship the image of the beast to be killed. He causes all, both small and great, rich and poor, free and slave, to receive a mark on their right hand and on their foreheads, and that no one may buy or sell except one who has the mark or the name of the beast or the number of his name. Here is wisdom. Let him who has understanding calculate the number of the beast, for it is the number of a man. His number is 666. All right, a lot to unpack there, and I will do this as quickly as I can. Now, there are a number of views here. There's a historical view, there's idealistic view, there's a very, very literal view. There's also a futurist view, a preterist view, and those other three fall within those. Then there's millennial views that are involved here, premillennial, postmillennial, amillennial. So there's, as you can see theologically, there's a lot to unpack from this particular passage. Now, the futurists, and I'll just go futurists and preterists for right now. When you come to the other views, it's just those things will be kind of peppered in with what I'm giving you. Futurists will say this is future to us. This is during a time of great tribulation. It will involve the whole earth after the church is raptured out and taken out of the world, and then all of these things will happen. This is a world ruler that comes on the scene. This beast is, and his number is 666. So everybody's looking for who's 666. That this mark of the beast would be literally a physical mark put on the physical forehead and the physical hand, and that no man would be able to buy or sell or be able to do anything without the mark. So that's why in the past, like barcodes were considered to be the mark of the beast. Now there's something that's come up. There was a question that came up recently. Was this the mark of the beast? And from a futurist perspective, I'm trying to remember what it was. Oh, this digital ID. Is a digital ID the mark of the beast, So I mean, so you can see how trying to tie this to current events and say that we're in the end times and this thing of the mark of the beast is coming up, how that can be cause people to have a little bit of either excitement or anxiety or how whatever side you're on. Some people excitement because they think they're going to be shot out of here. So that would be the futurist view. Preterist view is somewhat different. Preterist view would be, which is where I lean, would say this is past fulfilled. This is first century, and the beast is a ruling empire. So the preterists would see this beast as being Rome. It's the Roman Empire, or it could be Israel. But Rome seems to fit because of the description on the crown. That there was a 10 horns. Um, I'm sorry, let me go back. 7 heads, 10 horns, and on his horns, 10 crowns. So this is the indication of a political position of power. I had already mentioned in a previous video 10 specific um, Caesars of Rome that fall within that time period. And so this would be a great description of Rome. 7 heads because three of the emperors um, became emperor and died before a year was up. I mean, they only lasted a very, very short period of time on the throne compared to all the other emperors. So the theory is that they were kind of lumped together as one. So that brings it down to 7 heads, but 10 crowns because three were one. And so there's this beast, and then there's a dragon. Of course, the dragon we believe to be Satan, who's in control of the beast, Satan being in control of the Roman Empire. Um, and then we're just trying to identify different things. You have, of course, the 666, the one ruler. Now, 3 6s, I'll give you this. 6 is the number of man, 3 is the number of God. So if you have 3 6s, what do you have? You have a man who claims to be a god. And this would fit with the Caesars of Rome. Um, and one specific one whose name, when you look at the lettering, the Greek lettering of his name, because Greek had a numbering system attached to it. When you look at the 666, there's a specific Caesar of Rome that fits that perfectly, and that's Nero. And Nero was loony as a loony bird, folks. He was crazy as could be. Horrible, horrible Caesar of Rome. He was crazy. I mean, he was nuts, absolutely nuts. If you read about Nero, you'll know what I'm talking about. But I don't have time to go into all the stuff that he did. So that would be more of a preterist view. So with that in mind, let's see what we can pick up with the short amount of time that we have out of Russell. So we've talked about the futurist and the preterist view. Let's see what Russell has to say. And I've got DeMar down here, and I may start with him. Let me. Why don't I have a marker in here? I thought I did. All right. Got the measuring of the temple. Let's get to over here where we need to be. There's the two witnesses. Come on over. And keep going. Let's see. Woman clothed in the sun. That was Israel, the man-child, the red dragon, Satan. The man-child was Jesus Christ. And we have the beast. Here's the beast. All right, that's the first beast. We'll get into this in just a moment, and I'll mark it. But I want you to see a different view of the mark of the beast. All there's all of this stuff about the mark of the beast today. People are obsessed with it. And let me look it up here. I'll look in here and see which page it's on and give you a different view. Maybe it's under B for beast. See if I can find it. All right. Looks like 257 to 259 possibly. So that's 255. Let's go there. All right, 255 out of Gary DeMar's book on this. I know you guys are waiting with bated breath, right? So we have two first century candidates according to DeMar. A political candidate, Nero, for who the 666 is. I'll just read a little bit of this. The enigmatic 666 fits very well with the construction of Nero's name, his beastly character, the time in which he ruled, and his anti-Christian edicts leveled against the church. Keep in mind that we need more than plausible candidate. We need a relevant candidate. The first readers of Revelation were told to calculate the number of the beast, for the number is that of a man, and his number is 666. Now, the futurists would say that's the future Antichrist that's coming. But this is what the preterists would say. Since the book of Revelation was written to a first century audience, we should expect the first century readers to be able to calculate the number with relative ease. They would have had few candidates from which to choose. The Roman emperor would have been their most likely political choice. As was explained earlier, ancient numbering systems use an alphanumeric method. This is true with the Latin Roman system that we still use today. And he gives the system. The same is true of Greek and Hebrew, since the book of Revelation is written in a Hebrew Aramaic context by a Jew with numerous allusions to the Old Testament. We should expect the solution to deciphering the meaning of 666 to be Hebraic. Now, the reason clearly is that while he writes in Greek, he thinks in Hebrew, and the thought has naturally affected the vehicle of expression. Is there anything in the Bible especially in Revelation, that hints at this use of both Greek and Hebrew. The angel of the abyss is described in two ways. His name in Hebrew is Abaddon or Abaddon, and in the Greek, he has the name Apollyon. We've talked about this before. Something similar is done with Har Megiddon, hill of Megiddo, or Ar Megiddon, city of Megiddo. In John's Gospel, the place where Pilate sat down to judge Jesus was called the pavement. John calls attention to its Hebrew name, Gabbatha. In the same chapter, John writes how Pilate had an inscription placed on the cross above Jesus' head, written in Hebrew, Latin, and in Greek. Going from Greek to Hebrew was normal. Americans who try to find a contemporary solution to the 666 problem invariably use English. When Nero Caesar's name is transliterated into Hebrew, we get Neron Caesar. Hebrew has no letters to represent vowels. It has been documented by archaeological finds that a first century Hebrew spelling of Nero's name provides us with precisely the value of 666. Jastro's lexicon of the Talmud contains this very spelling. When we take the letters of Nero's name and spell them in Hebrew, we get the following numeric values. And I won't go through those, but it's N equals 50, R equals 200, W equals 6, N equals 50, Q equals 100, S equals 60, R equals 200, which equals 666, Nero. Every Jewish reader, of course, saw that the beast was a symbol of Nero. And both Jews and Christians regarded Nero as also having close affinities with the serpent or dragon. The apostle, writing as a Hebrew, was eventually thinking as a Hebrew. According to the Jewish Christian, accordingly, the Jewish Christian would have tried the name as he thought of the name. That is in Hebrew letters. In the moment that he did this, the secret stood revealed. No Jew ever thought of Nero except as Neron Caesar. Those who read John's account of the beast probably had come to this conclusion even before they made their calculation. Subsequent Christian history supports the view that Nero was the beast. All the earliest Christian writers on the apocalypse, from Irenaeus down to Victorinus of Pettau, and Commodian in the fourth, and Andres in the fifth, and Saint Betus in the 8th century, connect Nero or some Roman emperor with the apocalyptic beast. There is a curious variation on 666. Some manuscripts read 616. Why would a copyist make such a number change? Perhaps the change was intentional, seeing that the Greek form Neron Caesar, written in Hebrew characters, is equivalent to 666, whereas the Latin form Nero Caesar is equivalent to 616. Keep in mind that there were no copy machines in the first century. If you wanted a copy of a book, you had to copy it by hand. No matter how carefully a scribe worked, mistakes were inevitable. Some mistakes occurred when a scribe was making a copy of a known copy. He might have thought the copy was mistaken and that it was up to him to correct it. A Greek or Latin copyist might have thought that 666 was an error because Nero Caesar did not add up to 666 when transliterated into Latin. He then changed 666 to 616 to conform to the Latin rendering, since it was generally accepted that Nero was the beast. In either case, a Hebrew transliteration net 666, while a Latin spelling net 616. Nero was the man, and 666 was his number. Now, a religious candidate, Jewish priesthood, following the methodology of letting Scripture interpret Scripture, there is another possible solution in identifying the number 666. The number is found in three places in the Old Testament. It's 1 Kings 10:14, 2 Chronicles 9:13, Ezra 2:13, if you guys ever want to look those up. For our purposes, the references in 1 Kings 10:14 and 2 Chronicles 9:13, parallel counts, shed some light in the choice of 666 for the beast coming out of the earth. The land beast, Israel, promotes the efforts of the sea beast and can only operate under direction and authority of the sea beast. We are told that the land beast had two horns like a lamb, and he spoke as a dragon. The land beast is not the dragon, but he speaks as a dragon. So, not a literal dragon. We learn from Jesus that the religious leaders who opposed him were in league with the devil, the dragon. You are of your father the devil, and you meant to do the desires of your father. He was a murderer from the beginning and does not stand in the truth because there is no truth in him. Whenever he speaks a lie, he speaks from his own nature, for he's a liar and the father of lies. The apostate Jews are described as a synagogue of Satan in John 8:44. I'm sorry, Revelation 2:9 and Revelation 3:9. The other quote was John 8:44. The land beast is in league with the sea beast against the Christians of the first century. The land beast wants the sea beast to protect its corrupt religion against the religion of the Lamb. There is nothing new in this scenario since the apostate Jews turned to the Roman civil state to have Jesus put to death. In a final denouncement of their promised Messiah, the Jewish religious leaders cried out, "We have no king but Caesar." Acts tells a similar story of Jewish collaboration with the Romans to persecute the bride of Christ, the church. So that helps you that give a little bit of an understanding of the preterist view. Now, DeMar also states concerning the mark of the beast that it's not a physical mark, but it is metaphorical, talking about basically mind control. Control over the mind. It's a right hand is a hand of authority or power. Of course, the mind being under control of a great power. Nero would fit that bill that he was very stern and hard Roman emperor. He talks about identified Antichrist here in chapter 21. This is the Last Days Madness by Gary DeMar, Obsession of the Modern Church. If you want to get the book and read it, it's actually a very, very good book. Anyway, Mark of the Beast, I believe he's correct. I don't believe it's an actual physical mark. I believe it has to do with demonic and spiritual influence over individuals. Here we go. Let me give you just a little bit on the mark of the beast. All right. And he talks about the modern version, what people believe today about the mark of the beast, and he goes through the different people. But let me find a quote that is going to really help. Go back. I'm trying to get the pages to. Okay. Is it visible? And I'll end on this. And of course, the wound to the head, Rome burned during the time of Nero. And that could be the wound to the head of the beast, because Nero was the head over an empire, Rome, and Rome was a beast. And in the Bible, a beast is often used as a metaphor or an idiom for a ruling empire. So the beast having a wound to the head, that could have been the fire that burned in Rome. Nero fiddled while Rome burned, that old saying. Let's end with this because I have to get moving pretty quick here. A more fundamental question needs to be asked. However, is the mark of the beast a visible mark? Consider that none of today's prophetic techno-sensationalists compare the mark that is given to the 144,000 by the Lamb in Revelation 14:1. We'll get into that with the mark given by the beast in 13:16. The marks have to be the same. Will Jesus implant a microchip in the foreheads of 144,000? There are other considerations as well. Are the beast and the lamb doing the literal animals doing the numbering? Should we look for a beast that literally comes out of the sea, having 10 horns and 7 heads? Is there a literal land beast that has 2 horns like a lamb and speaks as a dragon? Those who insist on literalism are very selective in what they choose to interpret it literally. Insisting that the mark of the beast is actually a computer chip is not a literal interpretation. Now they're saying it's a digital ID. It is not all clear that John is thinking of a literal brand visible on the person of the worshippers of the beast. The seal of God placed on the forehead of the 144,000 is surely not meant to be a visible mark. It is a symbolic way of expressing divine protection out of Isaiah 44:5. If you want to look that up, the mark of the beast may be intended to be a parody on the mark of God. John D. Hanna, chairman and professor of historical theology at Dallas Theological Seminary, offers a similar perspective on Exodus 13:9. Like the Passover, the feast of the unleavened bread had great educational value in the home. The feast was like a sign on their head or forehead. That is, it was a continual reminder of God's mighty deliverance from Egypt. Some Orthodox Jews today interpret the passage literally and bind passages of the law on their forehead, on their arms, and foreheads in small pouches, so-called phylacteries, though this was probably not God's intention. John J. Davis writes that many feel that the expressions found in Exodus 13:9, 16 are not to be interpreted literally, but refer alone to symbolic action. Not a single commentator I consulted thought the actions were to be taken literally. Similarly, a similar commentary is offered by Elmer Towns, also a dispensationalist, on Deuteronomy 6:8, where he states that these verses are still carried out literally by many Orthodox Jews. The intent of this passage, Towns continues, is that the Word of God should be hidden in a person's heart and should constantly be a source of devotion and obedience to the Lord. The comments of Kell and Delitzsch are especially helpful. The line of thought referred to merely expresses the idea that the Israelites were not only to retain the commands of God in their hearts and to confess them with their mouth, but to fulfill them with the hand or in act and deed, and thus to show themselves in their whole bearing as the guardians and observers of the law. So, in keeping with that it was symbolic, we go with this. Every Jew would have understood that a mark on the hand or the forehead was an identification of loyalty, ownership, and heartfelt allegiance to Jehovah. This was made clear when we read the instructions that were given to the Israelites as they were about to depart from Egypt. And he goes through all of that. Throughout the book of Revelation, marks given on the hand and head are symbolic. Commentators do not usually claim that when God gives a mark to set apart his people, that the mark is visible to the eye. For example, in Revelation 3:12, we read, He who overcomes, I will make him a pillar in the temple of my God, and he will not go out from it anymore. And I will write upon him the name of my God and the name of the city of my God, the New Jerusalem, which comes down out of heaven from my God and my new name. I wonder where that's going to be put. Obviously, it's not. It's not physical. It's it's meant to describe a spiritual thing that occurs, not physical. Is writing God's name in the name of the New Jerusalem an external tattoo or brand of those who overcome? Is being a pillar in the temple of God to be understood literally as well? And so he goes on with that. So basically the conclusion, there's a lot more, but I'm out of time. And Russell will say the same thing. The mark of the beast is not physical, nor is it technological. It is spiritual. It is a spiritual, and I don't mean spiritual in the sense of holy, but supernatural, a spiritual devotion to a leader who claims to be a god. The Nero was considered to be a god and the head of the religion of Rome. And so the mark of the beast would have been devotion to Nero. And so anyone who did not take the mark, who was not devoted to Nero, would would be punished. And many Christians died because of that. That was when he was doing all of this persecution and killing of the Christians in the Roman Colosseums and at his dinner parties. Um, and he was the beast, and those who supported him were marked of the beast. They were the mark of the beast. They were devoted to the beast. And so that's what I believe that was, not something that's coming in our future. There's so much more that could be said on this, but I don't have time to say it. I think that gives you enough to take that and kind of run with it and explore more because there needs to be a lot more explanation on this, a lot more exploring, and do your research on that. Anyway, thanks for watching. I will see you next time on the C Files.